It's funny, the thing that finally ended it, the thing that blew up my entire world, wasn't some big, dramatic fight. It wasn't cheating, wasn't a screaming match in a crowded restaurant. It was a single sentence, man. Just a quiet sentence from my best friend Dorian over a lukewarm beer in a shitty dive bar. For 2 years, my life with Brielle had been governed by her own 5-word mantra, a question she'd deploy with the precision of a surgeon whenever my anxiety flared up. Are you going crazy again? She'd say it with this sigh, this look of profound, saintly patience, like she was the only thing tethering me to reality. And the sick part, I believed her. For 2 damn years, I thought I was the broken one, the project, the patient. I thought her constant care was love. But then Dorian said what he said, and it was like a flashbang went off in my head. Suddenly, all the lights came on, and I could see everything for what it really was. The whole relationship, our whole life together, it wasn't a partnership. It was a performance, and I was the unwilling star of her one-woman show. And the title of that show, Look at Me Being So Strong for My Crazy Boyfriend. When we first met, it was like a goddamn miracle. I'd always been a tightly wound guy, My brain just runs a little too fast, worries a little too much. I was open about it, told her on our 3rd or 4th date. And she was incredible. She didn't flinch. She put her hand on mine, looked me right in the eye, and said, "Hey, that's just a part of you. It doesn't define you." I remember one time early on, we were in a packed grocery store on a Sunday. The noise, the lights, the sheer number of people, it all hit me at once. I could feel the walls closing in, my breath catching in my throat. I just froze in the cereal aisle, unable to move. Without a word, she took the basket from my hand, gently steered me by the elbow out of the store and into the fresh air. She sat with me on a bench, not saying much, just breathing with me deep and slow until the world stopped spinning. She made me feel safe. For the first time, I felt seen, not judged. She was the one who would talk me down from a late-night panic attack about a work deadline, her voice a soft, soothing balm over the phone. She'd say things like, "Breathe with me, babe, it's just a thought, let it pass." And it would. With her, it felt like I could finally exhale. The shift was so subtle I barely noticed it, like the tide going out. It started about 6 months in. I was stressing about a presentation for a huge client, pacing the living room, running through all the worst-case scenarios. Instead of the usual "breathe with me," I got a slightly impatient, "You're just overthinking it, it'll be fine." It wasn't mean, not really, it was dismissive. A tiny crack in the foundation, but my first thought wasn't that she was being unkind. My first thought was, she's right, I'm being a burden, I need to handle this better so she doesn't have to. I saw it as my failure, not hers. A few months later, the crack widened. I was worried about my dad's health after a checkup, and my voice was probably shaking a bit when I told her. The response this time was sharper, tinged with a weariness that felt like a personal failing on my part. "God, you're so sensitive, Oliver." It was a routine appointment. The word sensitive was wielded like a weapon, a label that separated my genuine concern from what was normal. It made me feel ashamed. I remember looking at my phone, wanting to call my dad just to hear his voice, but I felt too embarrassed to do it in front of her, as if my love for my father was some kind of hysterical overreaction. The final evolution, the phrase that would become the soundtrack to our decline, came a year into the relationship. We were getting ready to go to her friend's barbecue, and the thought of all the small talk, the noise, the forced smiles, it was making my skin crawl. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, just trying to get my breathing under control, my hands trembling slightly. She came out of the bathroom, looking stunning in a summer dress, saw me, and her face fell. The smile vanished, replaced by this look of profound, theatrical exhaustion. She put her hands on her hips. Her eyes didn't hold concern, they held appraisal, like she was measuring the exact weight of the inconvenience I was causing. She didn't even raise her voice. She just sighed, a long, put-upon sound, and said it for the first time, her voice dripping with a kind of condescending pity. "Are you going crazy again? We're going to be late." It wasn't a question, it was a verdict. A diagnosis delivered by someone with no medical license but a PhD in making me feel small. And from that day on, anytime I expressed a feeling that wasn't cheerful or convenient for her, worry, fear, sadness, stress, it was met with that same phrase. It was her get-out-of-jail-free card for empathy. She didn't have to engage with my feelings if they were just symptoms of my craziness. And the most fucked up part is how quickly I learned to accept it. I started apologizing for my anxiety. I'd feel a panic attack coming on and my first thought wouldn't be, I need help. It would be, oh God, don't let Brielle see. I was a guest in my own life, constantly trying not to be an inconvenience to the person who was supposed to be my partner. I was so grateful she put up with me that I never stopped to ask if her version of love was actually just a form of control. It got to a point where I was living in a constant state of preemptive apology. I'd walk into a room and my first instinct was to scan her face to gauge her mood, to figure out what version of myself I needed to be to keep the peace. The real me, the anxious, sometimes struggling me, was locked away. He was too much trouble. Instead, I put on the OK Oliver mask, agreeable, quiet, and above all, untaxing. My own home felt like a minefield, and my own emotions were the mines. I stopped talking about my work stress. I'd have a terrible day, get chewed out by my boss, and feel that familiar knot tightening in my stomach. On the drive home, I'd rehearse a cheerful, bland summary of my day. It was fine, pretty standard, I'd say, while inside I was screaming. To admit I was struggling was to invite the sigh, the look, and the inevitable question. It was easier to just swallow it, to let it curdle in my gut. The worst part was how she used my anxiety as a social currency. It became her story to tell, her burden to display. We were at a dinner party with her work friends, these polished, successful people I barely knew. I was doing my best, smiling, nodding, contributing nothing of substance, but at least not actively panicking. Someone asked me about my job as a data analyst, and I started to explain a project I was genuinely proud of. I must have gotten a little too animated, a little too passionate, because Brielle cut in with a light, tinkling laugh. She patted my arm, a gesture that looked supportive to everyone else but felt like a leash being yanked. "Don't get him started," she said to the table, her eyes sparkling. "He gets so worked up about his numbers and charts. I have to spend hours calming him down later." The table chuckled politely. I felt my face burn with a heat that had nothing to do with the wine. It was a perfect little performance. In one sentence, she dismissed my professional pride as a symptom of my condition and painted herself as the long-suffering, heroic caregiver. I saw it then so clearly. My anxiety wasn't a problem to be solved, it was a prop. It made her look good. It gave her a story of struggle and resilience, with none of the actual struggle being hers. The absolute rock bottom, though, came just before that fateful talk with Dorian. We were supposed to go to a concert, an outdoor festival. The week leading up to it, I could feel the dread building. The crowds, the noise, the lack of a quick escape route, it was a perfect storm for my anxiety. I tried to talk to her about it, to maybe suggest we stay near the back or have a clear exit plan. I found her in the bedroom, trying on outfits. "Hey," I started, my voice already hesitant. "I'm feeling a little on edge about the festival tomorrow. The crowds are just a lot for me." She didn't even turn around from the mirror. She was admiring how a new top looked on her. "Oliver, we've had these tickets for months. My friends are all going. Don't do this." "I'm not doing anything," I said, my voice rising a little. "I'm telling you how I feel." She finally turned, her face a mask of irritation. "And I'm telling you it's fine. What is there to even be anxious about? It's music, it's fun. Are you going to let this ruin another good time for us?" She took a deep breath, transforming before my eyes into the martyr. "You know what? Fine, I'll take care of you, I always do. Just try not to have a full-blown meltdown in front of everyone this time, okay? It's exhausting." She called me her patient that night. As she was texting her friend to confirm their meeting spot, she sighed and typed, "Running a bit late, have to make sure my patient is ready to face the world." She said it with a little laugh, as if it were a cute inside joke. But I wasn't laughing, I was just standing there, invisible. That concert was a special kind of hell. I went, of course. I went because not going would have meant a week of passive-aggressive comments, of her telling her friends how I'd bailed at the last second. You know how he gets. So I stood in the middle of a 1,000-person crowd, the bass thumping in my bones, and felt absolutely, completely alone. I faked it for 3 hours, then made an excuse about a headache and took a rideshare home, leaving her to enjoy the rest of the night with her friends. The relief I felt closing my own apartment door behind me was so profound it almost made me cry. The next afternoon, I met Dorian at our usual spot. It was a dark, grimy bar that smelled like stale beer and regret, but it was our sanctuary. I wasn't even planning on unloading on him. I was just tired. I felt hollowed out. I figured we'd shoot the shit, talk about sports, and I'd go home and try to sleep for a decade. He took one look at my face as I sat down. Jesus, man. Rough night. I just shrugged, trying for nonchalance. Nah, you know, the usual. But Dorian's known me since we were 15. He can read me like a book. He let the silence hang for a minute, then he leaned forward, his expression serious. Ollie, can I ask you something? And I need you to be straight with me. Shoot. Is everything okay? With you and Brielle? And that was it. The dam broke. I told him everything. About the crazy comments, the patient jokes, the way she dismissed my feelings, the constant walking on eggshells. I told him about the concert, about feeling like a burden, a prop. As I talked, a part of me was waiting for him to say it. To say, well, she has a point, man. You are a lot to handle. I was braced for it. I almost expected it. He just listened, his brow furrowed. When I finally ran out of steam, he stared into his beer for a long time. I could see a muscle working in his jaw. Dorian, just say it, I finally mumbled, feeling defeated. Tell me I'm the asshole, that I'm lucky she puts up with me. He looked up, and his eyes were full of something I hadn't seen in a long time. Anger, but it wasn't directed at me. No, man, he said, his voice low and tight. That's not it at all. He took a deep breath. Look, I've been debating whether to tell you this for weeks. I didn't want to get in the middle of it, but fuck it. He leaned in closer, dropping his voice even lower. After you left the concert last night, we all went back to her friend Jenna's place. We were just hanging out and someone asked where you went. Brielle, she laughed. She said, oh, Oliver had to go home. The big, scary world got to be too much for him. My blood ran cold. That's not all, man, Dorian continued, and he looked like it was physically painful to say the words. She did an impression of you having a panic attack. She hunched over, started doing this shaky hand thing, pretending to gasp for air. Help me, Brielle, help me, she mimicked in this high, squeaky voice. The music is too loud, and then she stood up straight and laughed, this big, theatrical laugh. She said, it's hilarious, right? It's like living with a chihuahua. And a few people, they laughed with her. I just sat there. I couldn't feel my hands. The noise of the bar faded into a dull roar. It wasn't anger that hit me first. It was a profound, terrifying clarity. Every instance of her patience, every sigh, every dismissive comment, it all snapped into focus. It was never about love or care. It was about material. My pain was her punchline. The fog I'd been living in for 2 years didn't just lift, it was violently ripped away, exposing the ugly, rotten truth underneath. I wasn't crazy. I was being mocked. I don't remember paying for my beer. I don't remember the drive home. The whole world had narrowed to a single, sharp point of focus. It was like I had been underwater for 2 years and had finally, violently broken the surface, gasping for air. The truth was brutal, but it was also oxygen. I walked into our apartment and she was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, a picture of domestic tranquility. She looked up, a lazy smile on her face. Hey, you, feeling better? Her voice, the same voice that had once soothed me, now sounded like nails on a chalkboard. The mask of the concerned girlfriend was so transparent I couldn't believe I had ever fallen for it. What's wrong? She asked, her smile faltering as she took in my expression. She sat up straighter, her posture shifting into that familiar, condescending therapeutic mode. Did something happen? Did you have another bad spell? I just stood in the entryway, my car keys still in my hand, and looked at her. Really looked at her. I saw the calculated concern in her eyes, the slight tilt of her head that was meant to convey empathy but was just a well-practiced pose. I saw Dorian, I said. My voice was eerily calm. I felt detached, like I was watching a scene in a movie. Her face tightened almost imperceptibly. Oh, how is he? He's good, I said, taking a slow step into the living room. He told me about the after-party last night. He told me you did an impression of me for everyone. Silence. For a split second, I saw it in her eyes, pure, unadulterated panic. The look of a performer whose curtain had been pulled back at the worst possible moment. Then, just as quickly, the mask was back in place. "What?" She let out a short, sharp laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "That's insane. He's lying. Why would he make something like that up?" "Why would he, Brielle?" I asked, my voice still level, still devoid of the emotion she was expecting. She needed me to be hysterical. She needed me to be crazy so she could control the narrative. I refused to give it to her. "He's always been jealous of us," she shot back, her voice rising. She was on her feet now, pointing a finger at me. "He can't stand that I make you happy. He's trying to poison you against me because he's a miserable person." It was a masterful performance. The righteous indignation, the tears welling in her eyes. A year ago, I would have been rushing to her side, apologizing, believing her. Now I just saw the gears turning. "He said you called me a chihuahua," I said, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. That's when her strategy shifted. The denial wasn't working, so she moved to minimization. "Oh my God, Oliver, it was a joke, a stupid joke. Things got out of hand, we were all drinking. I was just trying to make light of a stressful situation." "Why are you always so serious? Why do you have to turn everything into a drama?" And there it was, the final, desperate attempt to make it my fault. My reaction was the problem, not her action. My sensitivity was the crime, not her cruelty. I finally let out a breath, a long, slow exhale that felt like it carried 2 years of poison out of my lungs. "No," I said, and the word was so quiet, yet it filled the entire room. "I'm not crazy." I turned, walked into the bedroom, and pulled my old duffel bag out of the closet. "What are you doing?" she shrieked, following me. "You're really going to believe him over me? After everything I've done for you, you're throwing this all away over a stupid joke. You are crazy." I just kept packing, t-shirts, jeans, my toothbrush. I didn't look at her. I didn't say another word, because I finally understood. Arguing with her was like trying to convince a mirror it was wrong. Her reality was the only one that mattered. My reality, however, was just beginning. I'm staying at Dorian's place for now, sleeping on a couch that's seen better days, but it feels more like home than my own apartment ever did. The first few days were a blur. I felt nothing, just a vast, echoing emptiness where all the noise used to be. The constant, low-grade hum of anxiety about what Brielle was thinking, what mood she'd be in, what I might do to set her off, it was gone. And the silence was deafening. It was the empty calm of a battlefield after the war is over. You're alive, but you're standing in the wreckage of what used to be your life, and you have no idea what to do next. The real shift, the moment I knew I was truly free, happened about a week after I left. It was a Tuesday morning. I was working from Dorian's kitchen table when I got an email from my boss. It was one of those short, sharp emails, "Need to see you in my office. Now." Instantly, the old programming kicked in. My heart started hammering against my ribs. My palms got slick with sweat, my breath hitched. What did I do? I messed up. I'm getting fired. This is it. The familiar spiral of catastrophic thinking began, and for a terrifying second, I heard her voice in my head, clear as day. "Are you going crazy again? It's just an email." I squeezed my eyes shut. I felt the panic rising, hot and suffocating. But then something else happened. A new voice, quieter but clearer, pushed its way through the noise. It was my own. "Okay, you're feeling anxious," I thought. The thought wasn't a judgment, it was just an observation. "Your boss's email was abrupt. It's normal to feel worried. This is a stress response. It's not craziness. It's just a feeling. I didn't fight it. I didn't try to shame myself out of it. I just let it be there." I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and filled a glass with cold water. I drank it slowly, focusing on the feeling of the cool liquid going down my throat. I took a deep breath, then another. I told myself out loud to the empty room, "It's okay to be anxious. Let's just go see what he wants." I walked to my boss's office, my heart still beating a little too fast, but my head was clear. I wasn't a patient heading to his diagnosis. I was just an employee going to a meeting. It turned out he wanted to praise me for a report I'd submitted. He thought my analysis was sharp and wanted to put me on a new, high-profile project. Walking back to my desk, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't about the praise from my boss. It was about the 5 minutes before it. It was the moment I had faced down my own anxiety without her voice to translate it into a personal failing. I had talked myself through it. I had validated my own feelings. I had been my own anchor. That evening, I sat on Dorian's small balcony watching the sunset. My phone buzzed with another text from Brielle, the 30th one that day, alternating between furious accusations and tearful pleas for me to come home and stop this madness. I just looked at it, and for the first time, I felt nothing but a distant, weary pity. I blocked her number. It wasn't a grand, angry gesture. It just felt like turning off a TV that had been blaring static for 2 years. The show was over. And in the quiet that followed, I could finally hear myself think.